Good morrow, scholars. I'm sure you can see no headphones. Uh, I guess I have a lot of explaining to do. I'm not sure. Um, I want to be making these videos, and I want to put in a lot of effort and everything. Just even after that break before, and then coming back and feeling good about it, and then just all of a sudden it went away. And I could go into detail about my personal life, especially at work. I'm sure some of you remember last time. I don't know why I'm talking like William Shatner, but I'm gonna finish this book and the next one up, and then we'll see where I go from there, I suppose. I feel really bad because I want to be doing a lot better, and I just don't feel like I can. It's nothing to do with you guys and not wanting to do this. It's just really more me not liking myself, I guess. I've been having a lot of personal problems, especially with my friends. I don't know what it is, but all of them at once seem to feel the need to kick me while I'm down. And I'm sure they don't mean to, or they don't realize it, but it really doesn't change how I feel, I suppose. Anyway, enough about that. Let's try and get back in the swing of things. I'm going to try and upload. Well, not upload. I'm going to try and record about 6 or 8 videos today, and that way I can get a little bit of leeway and just try and stay ahead of things. That's enough rambling. We left off in chapter 30, Sam, 41 degrees Fahrenheit, page 176. It's been a really long time, and we're only halfway through. Also, I'm sure I've mentioned my family, my brothers and my sisters, they don't value books as much as I do, especially my comic books, and a lot of them have had sodas spilled on them, so that's why for that. Do you mind if I go by Olivia's? Grace asked, climbing into the car, bringing in a rush of cold air with her. In the passenger seat, I recoiled, and she hurriedly shut the door behind her. She said, "Sorry about that. It got really cold, didn't it? Anyway, I don't want to, actually go inside. Just drive by. Rachel said that a wolf had been scratching around Olivia's house, so maybe we could pick up a trail near there." "Go for it," I said, taking her hand from where it rested. I kissed her fingertips before replacing it on the wheel. I slouched down in my seat and got my translation of... What? Rilke? R-I-L-K-E. I'd brought to read while I waited for her. Grace's lips lifted slightly at my touch, but she didn't say anything as she pulled out of the lot. I watched her face, etched into concentration, mouth set in a firm line, and waited to see if she was ready to say what was on her mind. When she didn't, I picked up the volume of Rilke and slouched down in my seat. "What are you reading?" Grace asked, after a long space of silence. I was fairly certain that pragmatic Grace would not have heard of Rilke. "Poetry." Grace sighed and gazed out at the dead white sky that seemed to press down on the road before us. "I don't get poetry." She seemed to realize her statement might offend, because she hurriedly added, "Maybe I'm reading the wrong stuff." "You're probably just reading it wrong," I said. I'd seen Grace's to-be-read pile, nonfiction, books about things, not about how things were described. You have to listen to the pattern of the words, not just what they're saying, like a song. When she frowned, I paged through my book and scooted closer to her on the bench seat, so that our hip bones were pressed together. "Iggy." "Not now." Grace glanced down at the page. "That's not even in English." "Some of them are," I said. I sighed, remembering. Ulrich was using Rook to teach me German, and now I'm going to use it to teach you poetry. Clearly a foreign language, Grace said. Clearly, I agreed. Listen to this. Gosh darn it. Do I want to read the German, or do I not? Give me a minute. I could ask Adam to come in here and read it. What do you guys think? I guess I have no way of knowing, but let's see. Was soll ich mit I'm going to say mit meinem Mund mit meiner Nacht. I can't get in the throat. You know what I mean. Mit meinem Tag. I'm going to go habe. Keine. Would this be a hard G or a soft G? I don't know. You know what? No, I'm not going to bother with that. You know what? I think in the next video I'm just going to read from the German half of that dictionary. The New College German and English Dictionary. Would you guys like me to read that? Never mind. Where was I? Geliebt, kein Haus, keine Stelle, I don't know. Auf der ich liebe. Grace's face was puzzled. Mine was distraught, I'm sure. Let me know how badly I butchered it if you know German in any way, shape, or form, and please be gentle. Where was I? She chewed her lip in a cute, frustrated sort of way. So, what's it mean? That's not the point. The point is what it sounds like, not just what it means. I struggled to find words for what I meant. What I wanted to do was remind her how she'd fallen in love with me as a wolf, without words, seeing beyond the obvious meaning of my wolf skin to what was inside, to whatever it was that made me Sam, always. Read it again, Grace said. So I read it again. I didn't. She tapped her fingers against the steering wheel. It's so sad, she said. You're smiling. I must be right. I flipped to the English translation. What then would I do with my lips, with my night, with my day? I have no... I don't like this translation. I'm going to get my other one from the house tomorrow. But yeah, it's sad. Do I get a prize? Maybe, I said, and I slid my hand underneath one of hers, twining our fingers. Without looking away from the road, she lifted our tangled fingers to her mouth. At least some things never change. Where was I? She kissed my index finger and then put it between her teeth, biting down softly. I'm not comfortable with this. Iggy. You know, it just occurred to me back when I first started uploading, as a gaming thing for the channel. Iggy was supposed to be in the corner with the headphones, and I'm gonna see if I can go back and do that. Anyway, where was I? She glanced over at me, her eyes holding an unspoken challenge. I was completely caught. I wanted to tell her to pull over right then because I needed to kiss her. But then I saw a wolf. Grace, stop! Stop the car! She jerked her head around, trying to see what I saw, but the wolf had already jumped in the ditch on the side of the road and headed into the sparse woods. Grace, stop, I said. It's Jack. She hit the brakes. The Bronco shimmied back and forth as she guided it to the shoulder. I didn't wait for the car to stop. I just shoved open the door and stumbled out, my ankles crying out as I slammed onto the frozen ground. I scanned the woods in front of me. Clouds of sharp-smelling smoke drifted through the trees, mingling with the heavy white clouds that pushed down from above. Someone was burning leaves on the other side of the woods. Through the smoke, I saw the blue-gray wolf hesitating in the woods ahead of me, not sure he was being pursued. Cold air clawed at my skin, and the wolf looked over his shoulder at me. Hazel eyes. Jack. It had to be. And then he was gone, just like that, plunging into the smoke. I jumped after him, taking the ditch by the side of the road in one leap and running over the cold, hard stubble of the dying winter woods. As I leaped into the forest, I heard Jack crashing ahead of me, more interested in escape than stealth. I could smell the stink of fear as he bolted ahead of me. The wood smoke was heavier here, and it was hard to tell where the smoke ended and the sky began, snared in the bare branches overhead. Jack was half invisible in front of me, faster and nimbler than me on his 4 legs, and impervious to the cold. My fingers, half numb, stabbed with pain, and cold pinched the skin of my neck and twisted my gut. I was losing sight of the wolf ahead of me. The one inside me seemed closer all of a sudden. "Sam!" Grace shouted. She grabbed the back of my shirt, pulling me to a stop, and then threw her coat around me. I was coughing, gasping for air, and trying to swallow the wolf rising up in me. That sounds weird. Wrapping her arms around me as I shuddered, she said, "What were you thinking? What were you—" She didn't finish. She pulled me back through the woods, both of us stumbling, my knees buckling. I slowed, especially when we got to the ditch, but Grace didn't falter, hooking my elbow to haul me up to the Bronco. Inside, I buried my cold face into the hot skin of her neck and let her wrap her arms around me as I shook uncontrollably. I was acutely aware of the tips of my fingers, of each little pinprick of pain throbbing individually. "What were you doing?" Grace demanded, squeezing me hard enough to force the breath out of me. "Sam, you can't do that. It's freezing out there. What did you think you were going to do?" "I don't know," I said into her neck, balling my hands into fists between us to get them warm. I didn't know. I just knew that Jack was an unknown, and that I didn't know what kind of person he was, what sort of wolf he was. "I don't know," I said again. "Sam, it's not worth it," Grace said, and she pressed her face hard against my head. "What if you changed?" Her fingers were tight on the sleeves of my shirt, and now her voice was breathy? Breathy? I don't know. "What were you thinking?" "I wasn't," I said truthfully. I sat back, finally warm enough to stop shivering. I pressed my hands against the heating vents. "I'm sorry." For a long moment, there wasn't any sound but the uneven rumbling of the idle engine. Then Grace said, "Isabel talked to me today. She's Jack's sister." She paused. "She said she'd talk to him." I didn't say anything, just curled my fingers tighter over the vents as if I could physically grab the heat. "But you can't just go running after him. It's getting too cold, and it's not worth the risk. Promise me you won't do anything like that again." I dropped my eyes. I couldn't look at her when she sounded like she did now. I said, "What about Isabel? Tell me what she said." Grace sighed. "I don't know. She knows Jack's alive. She thinks the wolves have something to do with it. She thinks I know something. What should we do?" I pressed my forehead against my hands. "I don't know. I wish Beck were here." I thought about the 2 lonely envelopes in the post office box and the wolf in the woods and my still tingling fingertips. Maybe Beck was here. Hope hurt more than the cold. Maybe it wasn't Jack I should have been looking for. Chapter 31. Sam. 53 degrees Fahrenheit. Once I let myself think that Beck might still be human, the idea possessed me. I slept badly, my mind skipping over all the ways I could try to track him down. Doubts crowded in there too. It couldn't have been any of the pack members that had gotten the mail or bought milk. But I couldn't help it. Hope won over all of it. At breakfast the next morning, I chatted with Grace about her calculus homework. It looked entirely incomprehensible to me, and about her rich, hyper friend Rachel, and about whether or not turtles had teeth. But really, what I was thinking about was Beck. They don't, do they? The one time he doesn't want to bite me. After I dropped Grace off at school, I tried for a brief moment to pretend that I wasn't heading straight back to Beck's house. Sorry. He wasn't there. I already knew that. But it couldn't hurt to just check again. On the way over, I kept thinking about what Grace had said the other night about the electricity and the milk in the fridge. Maybe, just maybe, Beck would be there, relieving me of the responsibility of Jack and eliminating the unbearable weight of being the last of my kind. Like Yoda. Even if the house was still empty, I could still get some more clothing and my other copy of Rilk, and walk through the room smelling the memories of kinship. I remembered 3 short years ago, back when more of us were in our prime, able to return to our real human forms at the first kiss as brings warmth. The house was full then. Paul, Shelby, Ulrich, Beck, Derek, and even crazy Salem were human at the same time. Spiraling through insanity together made it seem more sane. I slowed as I headed down Beck's road, my heart jumping as I saw a vehicle pulling into his driveway, and then sinking when I saw that it was an unfamiliar Tahoe. Brake lights glowed dully in the gray day, and I rolled down my window to try and catch a bit of scent. Before I'd caught anything, I heard the driver's side door open and shut on the far side of the SUV. Then the breeze played the driver's scent right to me, clean and vaguely smoky. Beck. I parked the Bronco on the side of the road and jumped out, grinning as I saw him come around the side of the SUV. His eyes widened for a moment, and then he grinned too, an expression that his smile-lined face fell into easily. Sam! Beck's voice held something weird, surprise, I think. His grin widened. Sam, thank heavens. Come here. He hugged me and patted my back in that touchy-feely way that he always managed to pull off without seeming gropey. Must have come from being a lawyer. He knew how to schmooze people. I couldn't help but notice that he was wider around the middle. Not from fat. I don't know how many shirts he must have been wearing underneath his coat to keep himself warm enough to be human, but I saw the mismatched collars of at least 2. Where have you been? I was about to tell him the whole story in a nutshell of getting shot, meeting Grace, seeing Jack, but I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. Certainly it wasn't because of Beck, who was watching me earnestly with with his intense blue eyes. It was some strange scent, faint but familiar, that was making my muscles clench and pasting my tongue to the top of my mouth. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. My answer came out more guarded than I'd intended. I'd been around, not here. You weren't here, either, I noticed. Nope, Beck admitted. He headed around to the back of the Tahoe. I noticed then that the van was filthy, thick with dirt that smelled of something somewhere else, stuffed up to the wheel wells and splattered along the fenders. Salem and I were up in Canada, so that's why I hadn't seen Salem anywhere recently. Salem had always been problematic. He wasn't quite right as a human, so he wasn't quite right as a wolf either. I was pretty sure Salem was the one who had dragged Grace from her swing. How Beck had managed a car trip with him was beyond me. Why he had managed a car trip with him was even further beyond me. You smell like hospital, Beck squinted at me. And you look like... yeah. Thanks, I said. Guess I was telling after all. I really didn't think the hospital smell could still linger after a week, but Beck's wrinkled nose said otherwise. I was shot. Beck pushed his fingers against his lips and spoke through them. Heavens. Where? Nowhere that'd make me blush, I hope. I gestured to my neck. Nowhere near that interesting. Is everything okay? He meant, were we still okay? Did anybody know? There's a girl, she's amazing, she knows, but it's okay. I tried out the words in my head, but there wasn't any way to make them sound all right. I just kept hearing Beck tell me how we couldn't trust our secret with anyone but us, so I just shrugged. As okay as we ever are. And then my stomach dropped out from under me. He was going to smell Grace in the house. Heavens, Sam, Beck said. Why didn't you call my cell when you were shot? I don't have your number for this year's phone. Every year we got new phones, since we didn't use them over the winter. Another look that I didn't like. Sympathy. No, pity. I pretended not to see it. Beck fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a cell phone. Here, take this. It's Salem's. Like he's going to be using it anymore. Bark once for yes, twice for no. Beck grinned. Exactly. Anyway, it's got my number in its brain already, so use it. You might have to buy a charger for it. I thought he was going to ask me where I'd been staying, and I didn't want to answer, so instead I jerked my chin toward the Tahoe. So why all the dirt? Why the trip? I knocked a fist on the side of the car, and to my surprise, something knocked back inside. More like a thud, like a kick. I raised an eyebrow. Is Salem in there? He's back in the woods. He changed in Canada. The beep. I had to bring him back like that, and he sheds like it's going out of style. And I think he's crazy. Beck and I both laughed at that, as if that needed to be said. I looked back to the place where I'd felt the thump against my fist. So what's thumping? Beck raised his eyebrows. The future. Want to see? I shrugged and stepped back so he could open the doors to the back. If I thought I was prepared for what was inside, I was wrong in about 40 different ways. The back seats of the Tahoe were folded down to make more room, and inside the extended trunk were 3 bodies. Humans. One was sitting awkwardly against the back of the seats, one was curled up into a fetal position, and the other lay crookedly along the door. Their hands were all zip-tied. I stared, and the boy sitting up against the seat stared back, his eyes bloodshot. My age, maybe a little younger. Red was smeared all along his arms, and I saw now that it continued all over the inside of the vehicle. And then I smelled them, the metallic stink of blood, the sweaty odor of fear, the earthy scent that matched the dirt on the outside of the Tahoe. And wolf everywhere. Beck, Salem, and unfamiliar wolves. The girl curled into a ball, was shuddering. Yeah. And when I squinted at the boy staring back at me in the darkness, I saw that he was shivering too. His fingers clenching and unclenching one another in a tangled knot of fear. Help, he said. I fell back, several feet into the driveway, my knees weak beneath me. I covered my mouth and came closer to stare at them. The boy's eyes pleaded. I was vaguely aware that Beck was standing nearby, just watching me, but I couldn't stop looking back at those kids. My voice didn't sound like mine. No, these kids have been bitten. Beck, they've been bitten. I spun, laced my hands behind my head, spun back to look at the 3 of them again. The boy shuddered violently, but his eyes never left mine. Help. Oh no, Beck, what have you done? What the have you done? Are you finished yet? Beck asked calmly. I turned again, squeezing my eyes shut, and then opened them again. Finished? How can I be finished? Beck, these kids are changing. I'm not going to talk to you until you're done. Beck, are you seeing this? I heard. I leaned against the Tahoe, looking at the girl, fingers clawed into the blood-stained carpet of the back. She was maybe 18, wearing a tight, tie-dyed shirt. I pushed off, backing away as if that would make them disappear. What's going on? And in the back of the car, the boy began to groan, pushing his face into his bound wrists. His skin was dusky as he began to change in earnest. I turned away. I couldn't watch, not remembering what it was like those first days. I just kept my fingers laced behind my head and pressed my arms against my ears like a vice grip, saying, "Oh no," over and over until I convinced myself I couldn't hear his wails. They weren't even calls for help. Maybe he had already sensed that Beck's house was too isolated for anyone to hear him, or maybe he'd given up. "Will you help me take them inside?" Beck asked. I spun to face him, seeing a wolf stepping from the 2 large zip ties in the shirt, growling and staring back as a tie-dye girl moaned at his feet. In an instant, Beck had leaped into the back of the SUV, lithe and animal, and had thrown the wolf onto its back. He grabbed its jaws with one hand and stared into the wolf's eyes. Don't even think of fighting," he snarled at the wolf. "You aren't in charge here." The heat always makes my hair poofy. Beck dropped the wolf's muzzle, and its head hit the carpet with a dull thud, unprotesting. The wolf was beginning to shake again, already getting ready to change back again. Heavens. I couldn't watch this. It was as bad as going through it myself all over again. Never sure which skin I'd be wearing. I looked away to Beck. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Beck sat on the tailgate as if there wasn't a spasming wolf behind him and a wailing girl beside him, and that other one, still not moving. Dead? Sam, it's probably my last year. I don't think I'll change next year. It took a lot of quick thinking this year to keep myself human once I finally had changed. He saw my eyes looking at the different colors at his neck, and he nodded. We need this house, this pack, needs this house, and the pack needs protectors still able to change. You already know, we can't rely on humans. We're the only ones who can protect us. I didn't say anything. He sighed heavily. This is your last year too, isn't it, Sam? I didn't think you would change at all this year. You were still a wolf when I changed, and it would have been the other way around. Or it should have been the other way around. I don't know why you got so few years. Maybe because of what your parents did to you. It's a crying shame. You're the best of them. I didn't say anything, because I had no breath to say it with. All I could focus on was how his hair had a little bit of blood in it. I hadn't noticed it before, because his hair was dark auburn, but the blood had dried just one lock into a stiff cowlick. Sam, who was supposed to watch over the pack, huh? Shelby? We had to have more wolves. More wolves at the beginning of their years, so this isn't a problem again for another 8 or 10 years. I stared at the blood in his hair. My voice was dull. What about Jack? The kid with the gun? Beck grimaced. We can thank Salem and Shelby for that. I can't go looking for him. It's too cold. He's going to have to find us. I just hope he doesn't do anything stupid before then. Hopefully he'll have the brains God gave him and stay away from people until he's stable. Beside him, the girl screamed, a high, thin wail lacking any force, and between one shudder and the next, her skin was the creamy blue of a black wolf's. Her shoulders rippled, arms forcing her upward, onto new toes where fingers had been. I remembered the pain as clearly as if I were shifting. The pain of loss. I felt the agony of the single moment I lost myself. Lost what made me Sam. The part of me that could remember Grace's name. I rubbed a tear out of one of my eyes watching her struggle. Part of me wanted to shake Beck for doing this to them, and a part of me was just thinking, thank heavens Grace never had to go through this. Beck, I said, blinking before looking at him. You're going to hell for this. I didn't wait to see what his reaction was. I just left. I wished I'd never come. That night, like every other night since I'd met her, I curled Grace into my arms, listening to her parents' muffled movements in the living room. They were like busy little brainless birds fluttering in and out of their nest at all hours of the day or night, so involved in the pleasure of nest building that they hadn't noticed that it had been empty for years. They were noisy, too, laughing, chatting, clattering dishes in the kitchen, although I'd never seen evidence of either of them cooking. They were college kids who had found a baby in a rush basket and didn't know what to do with it. How would Grace have been different if she'd been my family? If she'd had my family, there we go, the pack. If she'd had Beck. In my head, I heard Beck acknowledging what I'd feared. It really was true that this was my last year. I breathed the end, not really out loud, just trying out the shape of the words in my mouth. In the cautious fortress of my arms, Grace sighed and pressed her face into my chest. She was already asleep, unlike me, who had to stalk sleep with poisoned arrows. Grace could fall asleep in a second. I envied her. All I could see was Beck and those kids, 1,000 different permutations of the scene dancing before my eyes. I wanted to tell Grace about it. I didn't want to tell her about it. I was ashamed of Beck, torn between loyalty to him and loyalty to me, And I hadn't even realized until now they could be two different things. I didn't want Grace to think badly of him, but I wanted a confessional, someplace to put this unbearable weight in my chest. "Go to sleep," she murmured, barely audible, hooking her fingers in my t-shirt in a way that didn't make me think of sleep. I kissed her closed eyes and sighed. She made an appreciative noise and whispered, eyes still closed, "Shh, Sam, whatever it is will keep till morning, and if it doesn't, it isn't worth it anyway. Sleep." Because she told me to, I could. Okay. That was a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be, and then I spent how many minutes goofing off? Not really goofing off, you know what I meant. Let's not forget bookmark, because I forgot the bookmark in the last one. So, yeah. Alright. I'm going to read the next chapter, or the next thing for Witch and Wizard, then I'll read another one for this one, and then go back to that one. And maybe later on tonight, read one more of each after that. I don't know. I think I'm going to go ahead and upload this one. I might wait until I've read that one. I haven't decided. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. And again, I'm really sorry. Just bear with me. I need all the encouragement I can get. I understand that I shouldn't be reliant on other people's approval, but if you've seen me, and especially to people, I don't know, who've met me, it's very important that my fragile self-esteem not be stabbed in any way. And just, people don't seem to care. But I'm working on it. Anyway, until next time, goodbye everybody.